A certain town that's dear to me, home to Mohawks and G. It's called Schenectady.
Synecdoche, New York proves most elusive when you're trying to pinpoint its core themes. As the main protagonist, Caden Cotard, states deep into the drama, it's not a play just about death, it's about everything. At first glance, the plot of Synecdoche, New York is a simple one. An aging and self-centered theater director juggles his fraying family life alongside an artistic project whose scope and profundity only grows more unmanageable as time pushes forward. Yet, it is in this initial simplicity of plot where the more nuanced layers of the film begin to take shape and creep into center stage. Caden must deal with a stalker shadowing his every move, his growing fondness for another woman, Hazel, who shows him a level of interest and intimacy always missing at home, and finally, the play, an endeavor so gargantuan the whole of civilization crumbles before it is ever released to the public. But more on that later. We first meet Caden in middle age and at a point of deep stagnation in his life. Although he serves as the main focal point for almost the entire film, there exists a universalizing component to his tribulations, be they of his own creation or as a result of him being made to play yet another character in the theater of his own life. He's complicit in a loveless marriage, has deep existential worries about the meaning of his work, all the while being chronically ill, be it true or in his mind is another matter. Caden exudes a sort of paradoxical aura that magnetizes you to look deeper into his point of view, while also acting as a repellent when his pathologies show themselves at their most destructive. It is through this lens that we experience the other characters and come to understand how each of their individual journeys comes to make up the entirety of the story, Synecdoche representing a whole. In this, our first episode, we will dip our toes into the deep pool of potential meaning that is Synecdoche, New York, to dissect and seek to understand Caden and the characters as he hoped to understand all of humanity through his last great play. Alright, well, let's get going then. You want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. Well, I'm Kevin.
My name is Jose.
Today we're discussing Synecdoche.
Yeah, Synecdoche, New York, the movie that probably none of you have ever heard of before, but that's all right though. You know, we kind of like them fresh. We like it to begin with a little bit of mystery. You know?
We're gonna be putting on a lot of people to something completely. You know, at least you put me onto this. You're like, dude, you gotta see this. You came over and you watched it with me. It is definitely the movie. Once you watch it, you want somebody else to also experience that and. What did I just see? You know what I'm saying?
You want to have either a personal or a virtual hand holder while you're watching this movie the whole time. I'm telling you, even I myself, the reason I got inducted into even watching this film is because I watched light analyses on it, you know, and they did a wonderful job of not spoiling any of the more deeper intricacies of the movie, but still like putting that hook out. Everybody knows what that hook feels like, you know, when it's like, okay, you know what you want to see, you know what you want.
Yeah.
So we want to kind of start with a tougher project, and then slightly go into more, more deeper pop culture situations. We were talking about doing an Infinity War one in the future too. You know, it's good. Like
I think there's a lot to say there. Westworld.
Exactly.
There's a lot. Good content out there, but we're gonna.
We want to start from left field, you know, because everyone's running that way. We're trying to zigzag our way to a more interesting time. You know what I mean? It's like
make our kind of stand here.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Synecdoche, from a first watch, as far as like between the both of us, me having watched it, the latest. It was actually a difficult movie to watch because it was more because like you follow the main character and he's such a loser.
He is,
Caden
isn't he?
is such a loser, and you're just like, man, this is so difficult to watch somebody fail and fail and fail every social situation. You're just like cringing, like, oh, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. If anything, to me personally, I find that, and I even mentioned it in the introduction, that's that weird aura, you know, because you as a person who perceives that wants themselves to succeed, and whatever it is that you're trying to do, you want to keep yourself away from exactly those kind of people, the people
Right.
that will want to bring you down, that not even intentionally, you can kind of just feel it in like their third world like point of view kind of situation, like everything sucks, like my
Yeah.
left arm hurts, it's like, no, I can't go out, man, my left arm hurts. It's like
you definitely feel bad for Caden. And that's the thing, he does suck you into his point of view in the sense that he's not like doing anything wrong, in a sense. Like there's a lot of people where like a lot of what he does seems justified.
Okay,
Something about
okay.
Caden's character, he's always complaining about, oh, I feel like I'm dying, right? He looks older, and
older than 35 for sure,
right?
right? It's
Right,
like,
when he said 35.
yeah, it's like, whoa.
I was like, this guy cannot be. But he looks pretty, he looks older, and you're like, okay, if you put yourself in his shoes, maybe you'd start worrying about this kind of stuff. I mean, we're both in our 20s right now, so we probably think we're going to live forever. But
Well, I've confirmed it already, so...
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Caden, so you kind of get sucked into it, and even everything that happens to him, he takes it with like a kind of
2 scoops of salt. That's what it kind of feels like to me,
right, and he's trying to be a nice guy. He's always being a nice guy. He lets kind of life walk over him in a sense.
Yep, essentially.
Because so when his wife leaves him, you're just like, but
Don't you think that kind of makes it so, and perhaps I'm thinking about it far too antagonistically, but I think it actually makes a lot more sense because there is no direct antagonist in this movie. There is no, that guy over there is trying to make his life horrible. It is always a look in the mirror kind of situation.
Right.
And a person who is all schlubby like that, you would think that they would enjoy the woe is me ammunition that comes along with always being like, oh, well, I'm so meek. I'm going to let life walk all over me. Oh, look what life is doing to me. Like,
Right.
it's like they become surprised at their own demise, essentially.
Yeah, I think, he holds that to his character so much, it's kind of like a scapegoat,
Oh, yes.
And it's like it's his excuse for. I think an interesting part in that movie is like, okay, his wife leaves him, and you do feel like, okay, she's kind of a jerk for doing this to him, and she's like giving him this BS excuse, like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, correct.
Know, and
so early in the movie too.
really, yeah, and it's only when you see it from the perspective of his stalker where you think about it in a different way. Where Sammy's like,
Yes.
why did we leave Adele?
Why did we leave? Exactly.
It's like, she left me.
Yeah.
Like,
She
and
left
everybody's-
us.
She left us.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what, yeah, right.
He's
And-
already integrated Sammy a little bit into himself, and
Right.
and even then he's like, and Sammy doesn't fight him. You know what I mean? That's one thing about the shadow that we're gonna get into a little later. That the whole talking about the concept of there's always something being whispering in the back of your ear, telling you, when you feel like something is either going right or is going wrong, and you want to just continuously veer it off the rails.
Right. Actually, that wasn't the first time he was confronted with a different perspective of how that went down. It was when, what is Adele's friend's name?
Maria
When
the pedo.
He goes to try to find his daughter.
Yes.
And Maria tells him, like, how could you, it's like a totally alternate history of what happened and what went down,
Yes.
And
and this is actually one of those situations where the multi-view perspective that I hold actually can shine through, because what if we think about it in the perspective that it isn't a lie? Like, what if when Caden says, I don't have a homosexual partner named Eric, spoilers, that perhaps there is maybe a grain of a grain of truth to that, just a tiny one. Like, because you consider the concept that at the beginning of the movie, within 3 minutes, they're married and Adele's leaving him. It's like, it feels like a quick thing from our point of view, but it's been months, man.
Right.
The newspaper, the TVs, everything showcases that months have gone by between every instance and nothing has changed.
Right.
So who's to say that a man so schlubby like that could potentially not end up having, an episode like that? You imagine that an episode like that, some sort of let's just say slip, just to give him as much credit as we possibly can. Happens in one day.
Right.
And then you layer over that months upon months at a time, but that hurt still stays there,
Right.
It stays there forever.
I think what you're saying is interesting, especially about how the director set up this movie. It's such a dreamlike movie, and I always wonder, we're talking about how did Adele leave Caden, right?
Yeah.
Or Caden leaving Adele in that alternate, he's seeing it this way. Everybody has a different perspective of that story. And as the movie goes on, you realize you can't even trust the main character's perspective.
No,
he's not a reliable reality anchor, especially how this movie deals with time when you brought that up, because like he's like going out to get the paper and he comes back inside and it's been months.
It's been months, yeah.
It's and he's talking to Hazel,
or weeks at the very least, you know, and it's like, all our lives are about that to a certain degree.
That dreamlike state where you have those dreams where you're like, maybe you're a certain age and then suddenly you're older in the same dream. So it was funny where Hazel's like, Adele's been gone for like 8 years or so. Like, was it a year?
It was, but the first pre her leaving scene, where they're at the bar, and she's like pushing them to like go with him and stuff.
Right.
And that's the moment she goes home crying, remember?
Right.
Yeah.
She wants to smoke weed with him in the car. I was wondering what that symbolized. Why specifically,
why she likes to get high, my friend.
Right. I was wondering what that kind of meant with their relationship. And
right.
It was like specifically, let's go
loosen up, maybe. I think that's perhaps what it is. It seems like Hazel is almost like the universe's like potion for Caden, what I mean? But always just an inch away, always,
Right. But in the sense that, I mean, Hazel is definitely good for Caden.
Okay, yeah.
But the problem is, it's like, even in the beginning, it's like, okay, he's married. So you're like, okay, is he going to take this leave? And then in the beginning, you're like, well, he shouldn't, he should be loyal to his wife, whatever. And then, as things go on, you're like, damn, he should have just went for it.
Kind of how, the layering of time once again shows you a different picture. The further and further you get away from it, because it kind of makes you wonder whether it has a lot to say about the concept of fidelity. Especially in a situation where you're no longer having any intimacy. You see the scenes of them going to the psychiatrist.
Right.
They are a whole sofa apart from each other at all times.
That's true.
Every single time, and you can see that. And Adele, you can see the fact that just being there, having to talk about each other, is like sucking her dry. Oh
man, the stuff that she says to Katie is just so
it's like, can I say something horrible?
Right. How does that make you feel?
Please.
Just rips out his heart.
Yeah, totally.
He just takes it. But yeah, like I said...
Have you ever watched The Death of a Salesman before?
No, I haven't. No.
Neither have I. That might be something to look into in the future, because supposedly that's another real like existentialist film, and that's the reason why I believe that they chose that to be Caden's last like interpretive film. Supposedly Willie Loman, I believe, the people in the comments are probably gonna absolutely kill me if I get it wrong, but supposedly Willie Loman is the main guy, and he's the salesman, and his son eventually grows disillusioned by him. Like we all grow disillusioned by our parents.
So like framing this, the title was
Death of a Salesman.
Death of a Salesman, and this is a play that Caden has in the...
Yes, at the very beginning, the one that he's trying to get Adele to get all excited about.
It's a remake.
Yeah, it's a remake. It's a remake, exactly.
And Adele's just like not having it.
No, not about it. I have tiny beautiful portraits at home to go work on. You know what I mean? It's like...
That was an interesting thing, between Caden and Adele's work too, where he's interpretive. As his projects get bigger, hers get smaller. and it actually, I think I saw this on the Your Movie Suck analysis of this video, and I was like,
Big
man,
shout
I
out to
totally,
them, by the way.
definitely they did a great
big
job.
Shout out.
It's definitely
Finish
huge. There's more parts coming.
Yeah.
It's definitely a huge undertaking. So kudos to them. It was crazy. They pointed that out. Like Caden's plays get larger and larger.
Mm-hmm.
He's like encompassing like a whole city, and Adele's portraits get smaller and smaller,
Yeah.
and it's a metaphor for their perspectives. Right. So Caden is obsessed with this big outlook on things he can't really control.
Yes.
You know what's gonna happen. He with death and like this whole thing where he's obsessed about him dying.
Inevitabilities.
Inevitabilities that he can't control. Where and you kind of see it in the way he explains stuff to his daughter. Instead of just giving her the like simple,
like a child.
You'll get it,
yeah, a
right?
child's version. Yeah.
Daddy, what's on your face? It's pustules.
Yeah.
What? Like,
Psychosis.
Right. And explaining.
He has to make everything difficult.
Difficult.
Just like,
Adele
and he
says
doesn't
that.
even mention it. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
And Adele is totally fine with. She has the perspective that even if she's not giving her child the true explanation, to her questions, as long as she's happy, that's what matters, right?
Yeah.
And you can kind of see that in
that
her
already
work.
is it's such a rift in parenting,
Right.
that I can only imagine what it could have only gotten worse as Olive got older if they would have stuck together. The amount of resentment and stuff that would have just boiled.
Right.
Or maybe he wouldn't have cared. Who knows? It's hard to say. It's so hard to say.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, one thing that really struck me as I thought more about the differences between Adele and Caden's work and artwork is the fact that Adele has multiple projects complete. She finishes her stuff. She has them all the way up to the point that she has galleries in Germany. She's got galleries in New York. She's got, even Sammy supposedly, what we would consider Caden's shadow and the more darker aspects of it, can't even speak ill of Adele. He's like, she's the best artist that the world has ever seen,
Right.
And so what does that say then in terms of the fact that Caden lives and dies without ever having anyone actually see his play?
Right.
Everyone only ever gets to experience the play, whoever is working it, but no one actually ever gets to see it. There's no interpretation to it. There's nothing. Even he himself at the end grows tired of being himself.
It's crazy.
It's it's absolutely ridiculous that there is actually even an opportunity for him to be able to go off into a softer role. It's like. It's like you're all tired from having to work every day.
Right. Let me direct. You can
Mm-hmm.
go back to your cleaning.
Yeah,
and that
makes
actually brings up a good segue to the cleaning.
Yeah. Okay.
Your Movie Suck brought this up as well. It's only when he's cleaning and he's taken his mind off of his this existential kind of everything is wrong with the world kind of outlook and I'm dying, is when you kind of see there's normal television, right?
Yes.
Like because usually the TV will reflect his inner state, and when he's cleaning, he's in a mental state for once where he's not thinking about it. He's not thinking about that inevitable death that's coming and everything that's wrong with his body. He's just cleaning and he's happy.
He's got tangible aims.
Right.
He's
focusing on something he can
focusing.
handle.
Yeah.
Right. And
the moment that's done,
comes back.
The scope gets so big, and it's like, oh my lord, I'm only one little thing.
Right.
Yeah. That in and of itself already speaks volumes to the kind of situation that everybody has to deal with. It's like you want to pick up the load that you could carry the best, and at the same time it's like a Sisyphean task, because eventually you're going to have to put down that load, because you'll either grow too old to be able to carry it, or you'll actually complete it. That's another situation, is another one of the concepts that no one ever bothers to really talk about, is what happens once you complete that, the big project. It's like a lot of people end up just floating out in the middle of space because they feel just like Caden. Once the cleaning is done,
Right.
What am I gonna do?
You brought up this philosophical term when we were talking about this film earlier. You said solipsisms.
Solipsism. Yeah, I believe that's the right way to say it. Everybody, once again, in the comments, you can fix us up, show us how to say it the right way, but that's how we think we say it, solipsism. And no matter supposedly what it means is that it's either a theory or kind of like almost a delusion. You know, when all theories are, I mean, philosophical schools are a delusion to a certain degree. You know, like it's just the axiom that you yourself are the only thing you can know for sure exists. Everybody else is just they can be a figment. They could maybe not be, but at the same time, you can't ever for sure know that who you're talking to, you know, or any other aspect of reality is not just a projection of your own, you know, of your own mind.
I think that kind of speaks volumes to the way the movie is in general, because it seems like everything is an extension of Caden. You know, the TV's always reflecting what he's thinking, and every character seems like it's part of him. Like they don't have any existence outside of like how they relate to Caden in a sense. So you can kind of see his second wife. She's just this empty. She's an actor, you know. And there's that part where she's like, "Okay, what do you want from me?" And it's like, "What? What do you want from my character?"
It's like, we'll build it. Yes, we'll build it over time.
Right.
We'll model it on a real person. That's the really interesting aspect of it, is the fact that he lays it off for her clean. Right. And just like her last name says, she's keen on doing it, you know?
Right. Claire
Keen.
The movie kind of takes that concept and really runs with it, especially with his second daughter, where they don't even name her.
Her name's Ariel. Ariel. See, right. you can't even remember it. Even he himself's like, I wanna come back to you and all. No. Oh man, no, it's very true. It's because everybody else is just a prop. Everyone else is just kind of a stand-in for the real thing, you know, his real daughter. What I can only imagine he considers Adele still to be his real wife, since they never even spoke about the concept of them actually getting divorced.
That's true.
I can only imagine that he might have just like stopped his feet. You know what I mean? It's like, you're gonna come back to New York and we're gonna fix this, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe like because she's a whole continent away, that eventually it just disillusioned. You know what I mean? Like there was just like almost like an expungement or some weird thing, you know? Because she's married to Hans, and who I don't even know the other guy's name, but she married twice, baby. She went and got it. That
was like a weird OCD moment watching that film, where I didn't get closure for like, are they still together? Like, can you just do that? You know, just leave and just never come back. Never.
You
like,
feel like Caden once again. Right. It's like because he doesn't get any closure, at least as far as we understand it. You know, he never gets to. That's the weird thing about these weird time jumps, you know, when it starts going from weeks to months to years. It's like, was there ever actually a moment that they came back, maybe for like a day? It's like, did he genuinely not see his daughter ever again from the moment that she leaves from Germany
until she dies?
It's like, we once again, no closure. And how could we get closure, you know, because we're not Caden, you know what I mean? We're once again trying to squeeze ourselves into his shoes as much as we can to try to, you know.
It's a trippy film, man.
Yeah.
There was an interesting thing they brought up on the Your Movie Suck analysis. The idea that this movie is actually Caden's already dead. There's that line, Caden is a man who's already dead, right, in the film. And a lot of people who watch this film come up with the interpretation that he's in purgatory.
Okay.
Like, this is because you see he's always concerned, like he's in purgatory and he has no idea.
Right.
And it's funny because he's always concerned about he's about to die, and he's like one person who doesn't die.
He's the person that lasts the most.
Right. Yeah. Finally, at the end, everybody's gone and it's still him. And it's crazy. What do you think about that kind of idea?
I find that completely possible, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily have to be literal to my
Right.
sense, because you can live in purgatory just fine, right now while
Right.
you're still
How'd you
breathing.
know?
Like how could you possibly know if your life is always the same and there are no ebbs and flows anymore? What other definition to purgatory is there? Other than that, you killed yourself one day by saying, I am not going to do X thing anymore. Maybe you were slighted so hard that you decided to commit what Albert Camus has often cited as being called philosophical suicide,
Right.
where you just decide that, I'm either going to pledge myself to something that is not me, or I'm going to just say, screw it, and induct myself into pretty much the mausoleum of nihilism, because you become like a walking dead in that situation.
Yeah.
And that's what Caden kind of almost represents, is when you see him and he, it almost feels like the entirety of the world is like weighing down on him.
Right.
For no reason, especially when you start to look at the smaller details behind the movie and start to notice that the world is going to hell around them.
It is.
Like,
It turns into
right? Some sort of weird post-apocalypse situation.
Yeah, it's a weird post-apocalyptic. Everything around that stage that he's set up is just going to shit, and he's just stuck in his own world. And you can kind of see him always. There's multiple points in the movie where he just ignores the suffering of others.
Yes,
and
very,
he's
very
totally
clearly.
Into his own deal.
And I wouldn't even know whether to call that solipsism or that's just narcissism.
Right. Totally a narcissist, I would say.
Yeah.
And it's this self-loathing, though. It's like passive defeatist narcissism, because usually narcissists are like, I'm the best thing ever, where Caden's like, woe is me, I'm going through the worst, my troubles are the only troubles that matter.
That matter, yeah.
And it's kind of weird.
It's very, very hard, especially considering that other people, like such as Claire, they enable him at first.
Right.
They enable that
Claire
kind of
being the actor.
the actress turned wife.
Yes.
Actress turned wife. Turned ex-wife. It kind of seems like there's a nice linear pattern as to who.
Right.
It also makes you wonder. If we're talking about the scenes we never get to see, if even pre-movie, like what kind of person was Caden to even be able to attract Adele to to him to begin with?
Maybe he wasn't always that way.
That's extra scary to think about,
But then again, with Adele's character, she just makes decisions so spontaneously.
That's true.
It could be that she
just got pregnant.
Just got into it, not even, thinking that this would be okay. And,
you're right. You're right, because she even mentioned that the psychiatrist, did the baby change anything? And they're like, yes, the change. Like Caden's all like excited, it's like it changed a lot of things, and she's like, it might have not changed enough,
Right, that's true.
It's
maybe that's what she thought. Like she thought having a baby with Caden might make the relationship different, but it didn't. And even with her going to Germany, you just see her make these decisions on a whim. Even when she says, I don't know what I'm doing, right?
And we never see her again once she goes off to Germany. Like,
That's
she
true.
is cut off. The only times you see her are in magazines.
Right.
Yeah,
You
and
hear her voice.
Her voice,
right.
yes. And it never is speaking to Caden. That's another weird thing. It's always like, she always thinks she's talking to Ellen. Every single time, even when Caden calls her and he has that shaking attack,
right?
She's at a party and she's like, Ellen, it's like, sorry, I'm famous, and then she just hangs up.
The funny thing is they do play with his identity as far as is he Ellen or not. That was an interesting, because even the old lady who meets him in the hallway and sees him.
Right.
Like,
she calls him Ellen. Like,
right.
And it's like, you watch a schlubby man like like Caden Cotard walk down the street, you don't think woman. You know what I mean?
Right. And he goes with it.
He does.
But then there's also that moment where he's on the toilet and he just kind of like uses the bathroom like a woman would. So it's
because he's being told by Millicent Caden. She at that point she's speaking into his ear and she's like, wipe. He does it because he's once again he's tired apparently of having any autonomy. I think that the whole concept of autonomy and the loss of it is just interesting as a whole.
Well, he gives it up, right?
Yeah, entirely.
He becomes a character in his own play.
Mm-hmm.
It was just meta in how it's a play about life, and the characters are playing themselves, and then you're watching a movie about it, which is just, that art imitating life kind of thing.
Continuously.
But just
And
hitting you over the head with that.
You don't, and you don't exactly know where it ends. Like, does it even if there's even like a prime origin of this whole situation,
It kind of goes back to that whole idea of where we were talking about, are these characters real, or are they just characters in Caden's mind, in the sense? Is that what we're watching? Because while Caden is creating this gargantuan play, they start playing with this idea of how what was the lady's name?
Millicent.
Millicent starts playing Caden, right? And this is a woman playing Caden, and everybody's starting to have different people kind of play their roles, and so it this fluidity of identity starts happening.
And everyone seems entirely okay with it is also another thing. It's like everyone begins to be far more okay with the concept of, as you mentioned, the fluidity of just changing roles as you go along.
Right.
That even that that guy that becomes his new like number 2 after Hazel dies from the fire, finally, he's always talking about how he didn't believe in Millicent when they first did the casting. He for some reason thought that Caden was like a more positive, like a more hope. He saw it as a more hopeful story, and Caden's like, no, like she's got it perfectly. Yeah, it's actually perfect there.
That is crazy. And even how Sammy starts living Caden's life for him,
and better.
And better. And we did bring that up, how you thought Sammy is Caden's shadow, in a sense, like a Jungian shadow.
Yes.
Where when I looked at that, I thought rather he was a reflection of if Caden acted the way you wanted him to. If he took the chance with Hazel, if he was, assertive, outgoing, you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Like a better version of him, rather than not like a negative version of him, like his bad features. It was more like it was the fulfilled version, Caden, in a sense.
Totally. I'm kind of thinking about it in the sense of, if we want to keep it within like the theater motif that it kind of seems like the movie wants itself to set up itself as, you could kind of see Sammy as like the understudy of Caden, the guy who's always like there in case the main actor like breaks his leg or something. It's like, you can go off and be the guy.
That's true.
He's always taking notes. He's always leaning forward, trying to really get the feel of what it means to be Caden
That's
Cotard.
crazy. So it's almost like the play was already going from the beginning. So it kind of almost makes it feel as though the moment Sammy starts watching him, and when we start watching him too, like that's when it's the beginning, Yeah.
And it could play into pretty much like the quasi tagline of the movie that Hazel keeps saying about how like the end is built into the beginning.
Man. Yeah.
Like
that definitely is you have those situations. Sammy's being Caden even when he's not under like actually
under directive, yes.
Right, doing his role in the play, just being Caden. So then you start getting this like, you don't know what's real, in the sense. You start getting really confused about characters, and it's this whole dream like build of how they filmed this and they put this story together is really trippy. And that whole that saying, the end is built into the beginning, we see that in the burning house that Hazel buys.
Yeah,
it's like it's so real, because sure, you might be buying a house, but it's you're buying the house that you die in for maybe some reason in the and it takes her. she eventually dies from the fire,
Mm-hmm.
and it is that where the end was already built into the beginning, right? Is the fire happening always? Is it there now? But it's there eventually, and it is what kills her. So it might as well always be there. You know what I'm saying? If you could see it, would you still buy that house, and would you still
It almost feels as though it's a bit of structural chaos. Like it's like like that house is like the perfect marriage between the structure. I mean, the structure that is a house. Because a house is an orderly construct to a certain extent, and then the fire, which is like the epitome of chaos. And then the two are always working in conjunction because the house never burns down.
Right.
The house is there for years and decades, and even before Hazel comes, the house has been there, always burning.
Right.
She liked the house and wanted to buy it when it was burning. So that means that like it kind of speaks to her own character, because she wants to have like a very normal life. Like she has it with Derek or Eric, whoever the guy is that she ends up like marrying and having kids with. She lives that lifestyle, but then the moment that she gets a chance to be with, as you mentioned, Sammy, like a Caden that is actually fun to be around, she jumps at it right away. She becomes unfaithful to her husband, and they end up getting separated. She one of the very last lines that Hazel mentions is the fact that she doesn't get along with her daughter. So who knows how many kids she's got? It's like, so there's just a whole litany of things behind the curtain always happening that you can't even conceptualize. I
guess for me, the fire, I was thinking of it as maybe they're playing with time as they've always been playing with time. So I'm like, am I trusting that this fire's happening right now? Is this house always on fire? And like, it's absurd to think like, a house can burn for 20 years or how long she was in there. So I was just thinking, okay, the end is built into the beginning where this fire is the cause of her death eventually, right? Yeah. So the house will burn. Like
or the house will kill you.
The house is going to kill you.
That's what it is, because even the real estate agent says it's a very tough decision how one chooses to die.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So that it's like that's what you're choosing. And everybody is always choosing that. The thing that you love might be the thing that kills you, at the end of the day. For me, I really like cars, and that's a total risk.
Yeah.
You buy that really nice sports car, it might be the vehicle that kills you.
Totally. And you can completely like take that idea and splice it anywhere within anyone's life. You're talking about a job. You have a job that you dislike to a certain degree, that job is going to kill you. That little bit of animosity that you hold every single day that you bring to the table adds up every single time, and if you do nothing about it, it will eventually come to the point that you're also going to wake up one day, go to work, and potentially die right there.
Right.
And some people would love the ability to die at their job. Like some people, some people genuinely love what they do, and it's like if there is an opportunity to choose how one is going to die, like they kind of put themselves in a situation where they are always insinuating death, almost like they're bringing it a little closer every single time they do what they love.
Right.
And I find that's kind of what makes if we're talking about it in an artistic sense, I guess that's kind of what makes beautiful art almost. It's like when you try to see, it's always almost a stereotype at this point, considering the concept of the hurt artist, and how even at their lowest places is when they manage to be able to eject or mine out the best in themselves and bring it back to us normal people, essentially. It's like there are people out there that are submerged in depression. They're submerged in whatever other psychological trauma might be haunting them, but at the same time they have the bravery to be able to enact like a piece of art, either through writing, music, whatever, and then you as a person, you and I myself too, as a person who perhaps don't suffer from those afflictions, we can see that and be like, oh man, we can have it fosters empathy. I think, if
Right.
anything, you know. And I think
agree.
if we're going to bring all that back to Synecdoche, that perhaps is exactly what Caden wants to do with this play as a whole, and that's why he even says there are no side characters here. Every single person, you know, is the main character, and he considers that line so profound at the funeral that he has it remade like right away.
Yeah.
He has it remade right away. But let's notice that Millicent, when she becomes Caden, she's not okay with the concept of just recreating life for life's
Right.
sake.
I did like that because I felt when I was watching Caden do this, I'm like, this is not art. You know, you're imitating life, but it's not like you're not pulling the meaning out of it, and that's what we're trying to do, because that's what art does. You know, it can take a normal everyday scene, but it brings out the meaning that you might have missed in your
Exactly.
you know, every day looking at that same situation. Once it's put on a canvas and the artist is able to highlight those areas in which there's additional meaning, I feel like that's what makes art. So when there's that that scene that Millicent redoes with the funeral, and she has him actually
She pumps it.
right, she really pumps it, and she dramatizes it.
Yes, that's the
Right.
word. That's the right word for it. Yes.
Exactly.
She makes
So it makes it an epic. It's like, okay, we wanna, if we're gonna hear a story, do you want it to be, you know, just a normal story that you hear from anybody else, or do you want it to sound like Odyssey and have
Correct.
dragons? You know, you're slaying. It's a metaphor for life.
Yeah.
Of course, it imitates the journey of a soul, but you know, the way that you tell it is able to give
The moral.
the viewer
Yeah.
more meaning through the metaphors that is used. So I thought that was pretty cool that they did that, because I thought Caden was kind of missing the point here, because it's like, okay, you recreate life, but why?
Why? Yeah, exactly. Especially for a person
Yeah.
who's already so pessimistic, you know, like to consider the job of having to recreate every aspect and every scene of life as some sort of interpretation as is of life is, you know, like you said, it's boring. You know, like who wants to see that? Everybody already is living life. We want to be
Right.
able to experience something that emboldens us. You know, it's like we want, like there are dragons out there, you know, that we can't see, that we want to be able to feel like, oh yeah, like just like that other character, I was also in a down place, and now I'm gonna be able
Right.
to fortify myself for it. And he doesn't give that to people.
Right.
He only wants to give people the nitty gritty. You know, which and I mean, and perhaps there's something to be said about that. You know, maybe there's something to be said about giving somebody like hyperrealism, essentially. You know, in that sense, but
I
it doesn't
think
work for me at least.
even the director does this with you know, the movie, where he could have just told
Charlie Kaufman.
Kaufman, yeah, he could have just told a story with, you know, this middle-aged guy confronting death and, you know, trying to write a play and have it be normal. But the way that he set up scenes, the absurdity he put in scenes where you're just like, okay, is this real or not? Is this happening? Why does this guy have a stalker? How is he not noticing the stalker there, right? And there was that point where Sammy's literally holding his child and babysitting for him, and still does not
Doesn't
notice.
see him, yeah.
Right. And so in that same way, he's bringing out more meaning, you know, by making these absurd. He's highlighting these areas of life that you kind of connected to your own experience, and you're like, okay, what are the things that I'm missing? You know what I'm saying?
How can I be less like Caden?
Right. How
You
can I
know?
be less like Caden?
If anything, that's already a good
Am
moral.
I ignoring people around me that, you know?
Yeah.
And,
Is the world going to hell much faster than I'm perceiving it to
Right.
be, you know?
right. So you start thinking about that in your own experience, where just because of the way that they made this movie, right? It draws your eye to that. You
Right.
know?
Kind of, you know, your entire interpretation about the concept of having to, you know, see if the perception of art can be different from life, or that it has to be different from life, kind of brought to light more of Adele's paintings, that you have to literally put on special glasses, you know, and put yourself in her frame of mind in order to be able to like even take
To
in
perceive
the
it. Right.
the painting, you know.
Right.
And so she already has a more sophisticated view into what it even means to interpret art, and what, you know, because she's not doing landscapes or anything. She's doing naked portraiture, portraiture of women that she loves. That's even the title of her project,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
She, like, everything about her is about love, you know. Like, she encapsulates that, the entirety of what it means to be essentially the artist who arts for art's sake, you know.
Right.
I mean, to say it in the simplest terms, essentially. Because let's even picture how we even figure out that she died. A little fax machine with one line of sentence. It says Adele has died. That's all it is. That's all the fanfare that she even wants about her death, because she's lived such a fanfare life already.
Famous.
Yeah, exactly. That it doesn't even matter, you know, whether one small line of print is all that you need to let you know that she's died, you know, because she wasn't living for anyone else at that point. She was living for herself, and if you happen to want to know that she's died, well, there it is, you know.
Right.
That's it.
It
You
is
know,
crazy.
while Caden does what for 2 hours in a whole lifetime, keeps telling people that he's going to die.
Right.
You know, he can't go 5 minutes into an intimate relationship with anybody, or even the easy intimacy of sex,
Right.
without breaking down crying.
He ends up dying before he dies. You know, it's kind of.
Oh, fuck,
That's
yeah. That's it.
That's what he does. He
Yeah.
just accepts that, and you see him dying through the whole play until he
Mm-hmm.
really ends up turning to stone, as they said. He's a man who's just turned to stone. Yeah, that's kind of what you see, and it's crazy. Even with when we're talking about art, I just realized that kind of surreal feel is almost realer than the what art is trying to portray, right? A normal scene like this, but
Yeah.
we have our own thoughts, predispositions, things that we're dealing with. Where if an artist takes a canvas and, you know, takes this, how can they show the realism of my character? Like, if you take a picture, you won't know me for real. But
Right.
if someone draws something and shows, you know, put something in the background to kind of, you know, bring out this is his character. These things represent what this character is like for real. In the sense that art can be more meaningful than real life, than something that is just totally imitating life. As Caden's play started going, where it was just like, just make it real, gritty, blah blah blah. But then you start missing all that stuff. I feel all the stuff of the real meaning behind who is this person doing the thing. Like what's the story behind them? What makes them tick? You know. And I think art is a good medium to bring out that extra lost the reality that you don't see. You know, right?
I can totally understand that perfectly, and it kind of it totally falls in line actually with the concept of Caden being the director of this play, correct? So he is essentially the god of this little universe,
Right.
and he even makes mention of that in a scene where he's walking and he tells everyone that he's going to give them all a little thought note every single day, and then from that thought note they're going to derive every single aspect and characterization that they're going to put forth in their character from that day, from that moment forward.
Right.
And he's like, and I get my thoughts from my own god, you know. But then that just goes to show you the limits of an anthropomorphic god, because that god, you know, Caden, in that sense, he's sad. He's a sad god. So the only kind of thoughts that he can give you is, I might have cancer. You know what I mean? I lost my job. Like, those are the little things that you see in the little on his little post-it notes as he's writing them. That's the only conceptualizations of reality that he can have. So because of that, what if we never actually see outside New York anymore. We're always only seeing the inside of New York, and because of all the negative thoughts that Caden has protrude throughout time, only the Synecdoche, New York, is the one that's going to crap all around. And like the rest of the world's fine. You know what I mean? Like the rest of the world might still have its problems, but because of the continual negative outpour that, you know, that Caden's own mind has been giving to people. He's constructed this reality where everyone is dead at the end. Everyone has pretty much been massacred in some way, and it's almost his greatest desire to be the last person alive.
He has a love, like this lust for just depression and sadness, and he's in love with it. Right? And you can kind of see when someone really captures his, like when Millicent just really captures how down and just hopeless he is. It's almost like he has an orgasm or something, like someone gets me, oh my god, you know, like, I suffer like this, you know. And that's crazy.
Where anyone else, you know, could potentially be a little offended when Sammy goes and like starts talking the way he does during his interview, where he's like, "No, we don't have to hire anyone else. Like this guy's got me down flat." And then he goes into like this really deep sexual like metaphor of making like a chimera, you know, like where the penis and vagina forever fused. And Caden's just sitting there like, yeah, this guy's got it. Like that's exactly how I feel.
Right.
You know, he's so ready to have other people speak for him. It kind of seems like, once again, leading us right back to the concept of a loss of autonomy. You know, and how some people seem to crave it. You know, it almost seems to go. It almost seems to go hand in hand with depression to a certain degree. You know, not that anybody here is a clinician to be saying, you know, to be giving forth any sort of you know, authority-driven, you know, conclusions on it. But let's consider, just in an abstract way, you know, somebody with a little depression they begin to perceive the whole world as such. You know, they begin to perceive the world as a depressive place wherein maybe everyone else can be doing just great, but they're not. They are the other in that sense. And, you know, if left untreated, that kind of situation swallows you up whole. Right. It's never the kind of thing that ebbs and flows. It just swallows and swallows and swallows. Right. So it kind of seems like that's exactly what happened to Caden. You know, the world didn't seem like it was enough for him, so he had to go and create his own world. He was
afraid of his own thoughts. Him thinking led to those depressive, just down thoughts, and it seemed like he was his happiest, or at least he was fine with being when he was being told what to do, you know, like
Hazel,
right?
Oh, and Hazel just from the very beginning,
right? And Hazel was
and
like,
now you say
this.
Know?
I want you to beg me, blah blah. And when he just found joy doing what people told him to do, so he wouldn't have to think about it.
Exactly, and maybe because he wouldn't have to take responsibility for it. You know, imagine if Hazel was the kind of person that was like, and then, you know, from the first their first little bench sitting, you know, afterwards he's like, "What do you want me to say?" And then what if Hazel's like, "And then I want you to say that you want to take me home," you know, and then would he have then said it and then done it under the guise that it's Hazel, you know, driving me, right? You know, driving me right now. I can totally see a schlubby guy like Caden totally taking that out. But he's like, no, it's like, you know, it's like...
Right. He doesn't want to have the responsibility for that. That's definitely...
And it even does culminate when they do inevitably have sex.
Right.
Once Adele has been gone for like a year and odd months, you know, and even then he breaks down crying because he's like, I'm a father, and it's like, I'm married, and it's like, he's like, and I think I'm dying, and it's like...
I don't deserve this kind of, like, once he starts thinking again, I think that's a lot of people who like they're in this prison of their mind, right, where they can't get outside of those negative thoughts, where they can't switch them to something positive, and they're just like, if someone could just tell me what to do, like becoming like an android in a sense, like if I didn't have to think about doing anything and it just happened, right? And like going back to that animalistic reptilian type brain where you're just reacting to your environment in a sense. It is kind of, I mean, I've had those thoughts. You fantasize with that kind of like, okay, it'd be great if, like, why do you have to, as a human, like, you're always deriving all this meaning from everything, right? You can't just have something happen and just take it for what it is. It's just something that happened. You're always coloring your experience.
You always know things before you look at them. I think Heidegger mentioned that once. You know, about the whole idea that when you look at a door, you know, depending on which direction you're seeing the door from, either from the inside the house or outside the house, it's like the door either it already has a presupposed purpose to you. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like it's either a method to get into a place or a method to get out of a place, but you never just see it as a piece of wood with maybe glass inserted into it, you know what I mean? With like little metal fobs and like knobs, you know, that somehow make it, you can open it, you know
That's
what I mean?
Like it is the burden of consciousness to have to, always making meaning out of your universe, and it's on your shoulders to make everything meaning. I remember a movie called Get Him to the Greek. I don't know if you've watched that. No. It had Russell Brand in it, and Russell Brand plays this rock star junkie. Right?
Oh, okay.
And he says this line, which I always think to this day was profound, and he was just like, yeah, I used to be like you. I used to have all these thoughts and desires and like, you know, all these depressive, you know, like responsibilities and everything, but now I just do drugs. That's it. Like, it's just drugs, and that's the only thing I care about, and it makes life so much easier, right? Because this is it, you know. And you kind of think about, an animal doesn't really look at this cup and think, oh, it's a half full, or is it half, you know, is it half full or is it half empty?
It's just
the
water.
Existential meaning of this, right? They're just, can it quench my thirst? They're just thinking about survival, and that's the modus operandi of being to them, right?
Yeah, it's why wolves have to eat, you know, pounds upon pounds of meat in one sitting, because they're not thinking about, well, I should probably save some of this caribou for later.
Right,
you know?
They live in the now.
They live forever in the now.
Where humans project themselves into the future, where usually the future is always not real. You know, it's an imaginary. Sure, maybe if they're thinking probabilistically, you know, this is a future that could happen, but you never know.
No.
Right? So most of the time people worry, like Caden, I'm going to die, I think this is happening, and he starts making up issues that he doesn't even have for some future day of agony, right? He's already experiencing now.
Yeah, he's already tallying up the agony right now, you know what I mean?
Even though it hasn't happened, he's not even sure if it will happen.
And it never even comes. He dies so peacefully. Imagine of any other type of death that you could possibly have, you're just talking one day and all of a sudden, boom, that's it, you're just dead. All your autonomic functions are just completely gone. But you didn't suffer. You didn't anything. You know.
But the whole time you were suffering.
But the whole time,
just thinking that, oh no, this thing is gonna come for me.
Life in and of itself was a disease for him. It almost seemed like every single day was agony, because he knew that, oh, I'm alive, then that means I'm gonna die one day.
Right.
Oh no. Yeah. You know, like there wasn't a moment of peace anywhere in his life as a result of that.
Right.
And
I think that's I was reading a book recently called The Power of Now, and they kind of, this guy advocates that for people to get out of their kind of, that torture of being, right? All that.
It's like self-flagellation. You're just whipping yourself every single day.
Because he says that, I thought he was definitely right about how people torture themselves about a future that doesn't even exist, that they've made up, right? And they forget to live in the moment and be in the moment, because they just obsess about a future or a past. And even with the past, you can't ever, the thing is, you never experience the past or the future. You're always experiencing it now, right? And even the past, even though it's happened for sure, the problem is you can't even remember it correctly.
No, exactly.
Right?
We almost totally got messed up between who's drinking glasses. Were in front of us a moment ago.
Exactly.
It's like,
how did that happen?
Yeah.
So it's always in a quasi state of like
Yeah.
what is what for the future and the past. So it's kind of crazy that you find. I mean, we do it. I probably still do it, and even though that I'm aware of this, just torturing yourself about that, and that's definitely, I think, a big theme of this movie, of how Caden just has all these delusions of grandeur and just tortures himself about it.
It's a miracle of both biology and just the consciousness as a whole. The fact that we can, as you said, project people into the future, that you hope that you can become.
Right.
Like, it's like that guy over there, once I finish all this, I'm going to be like him, and he's going to be doing great.
Right.
Always
It's
hoping
useful.
that.
It's definitely a
of
useful
course.
survival skill.
Of course.
But
Not knocking,
it's become our burden.
Not knocking it. Yeah, right?
It's become the burden of
now that there's no caribou.
Homo sapiens.
Yeah, now that there's no caribous to go out and hunt, it's like now we have to consider. Now we have to do this podcast. See, this is what agriculture leads you to. This podcast, all right.
Talking about the existential dread of being alive and knowing that soon you won't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just happy thoughts. That's what we're about here at this podcast.
Definitely,
but it does make for some comedy, though, don't you think? I mean, as I watched, the more times that I personally watched the movie, the more places I find myself smiling as I watch the movie, because
the absurdity.
Yeah, exactly, because the absurdity shows itself front and center once you understand the fact that Caden's not going to die. He's not going to suffer from any sort of actual illnesses that he's worried about, and everyone else around him is going to, everyone, it's almost like a tragicomedy, you know what I mean? Like like all
that is true.
Yeah,
once you watch it and knowing the end, you're just like, this guy's an idiot. Like, he's just making stuff up. And he's making his torture just.
And he's dumb too. You have to also consider that although we, this actually showcases some of the biases that we as the audience are inclined to have, like we always think that the protagonist knows best to a certain degree, that he's in a position of a bit of moral superiority, because why else would we be watching this guy, what I mean? And then he goes to the doctor, and then he tells him that he doesn't think the eyes are part of the brain, and it's like, you mean in like a right or wrong sense, is like a moral sense, or like a fact sense? Like facts. and then and then you think about Claire, and this is once again from multiple viewings. I've really tried to pinpoint on Claire every single time she's on the screen, because before she seems like such a secondary character, right? A prop to Caden's new second life that he's going to build. But then you begin to hear what she says, and she mentions the brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky's books. She mentions the importance and the profundity of what the play actually signifies. Like, she can see it. Like, the moment that he tells her what it is that he wants to build, somehow, some way, maybe it's because she's kind of a sycophant. She's kind of like a fangirl to Caden. But she falls in love with the concept of the play right away. But it seems to be from not a superficial place. Like, she understands like the more philosophical underpinnings of the play. While Caden, once again, as we were talking about, he just wants to make real life. I want to be a video camera is essentially what he's saying. I want to be a video camera that tells you what to think as I'm walking by and looking at you. And you're gonna think just as negatively as I am.
Right. She is actually a pretty solid character, as much as she kind of represents this kind of vase that you just Caden pours his kind of his fantasies into that, and she just becomes that, but at the same time you kind of see the decisions Caden makes with her, even just seeing how the relationship happened, him just deciding to go with her for her mom's funeral. Was it her mom?
Yeah, her mom's
her
funeral.
mom's funeral, and then that led to a whole life with
Just
her,
a whole
you know?
complete splinter off situation, you know?
Right.
And how little he sees her, too, because you consider, if we take it literal, you know, and say that he had never actually seen that tattoo on her back,
Right.
it means that they might have only had sex the one time.
That
you know
one
what I mean?
time, they did point that out in
Yeah.
that analysis, and
Yeah.
I was like, why? I remember seeing that part. I was like, what
It's like,
does that
everyone's
mean?
got a tattoo, and she's just got the
She-
most, like, satanic looking, like demon thing on her
I've never
back.
seen that.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Just,
So the
at that
child
point, it's
happened
been,
from
like-
the one time they had, but that's absurd. Of course, like that wouldn't, you know.
It would only work if perhaps you were thinking about their life as scene changes. You know, like if they really, if once they stepped out, they would always come back older, you know what I mean, to take on the next scene. And like there really is no middle section between their lives, you know, like every single aspect just kind of like
I also thought Caden was so caught up in his own world and his own worries and what's gonna happen to him that he just wasn't noticing. Whole patches of life were passing
flying by, yeah.
and a lot of meaning he was missing.
what happened to Ariel? You
Right,
know, what
right.
happened to his other daughter?
Exactly, all that stuff that he can't even imprint that this is his daughter.
They
Like,
all grow old, and
Ariel.
Ariel stays 5. I noticed that also of a couple times that I watched the movie is that Claire is walking with Ariel, like once they're, you know, like when they're walking outside, and you see like all of like the trucks taking people away in the middle of the night, and yeah, Ariel's still like 5 years old, but Claire looks like she's aged like 10 years, you know. So it's like, is that even Ariel? Like, are they using the prop girl like as
Yeah,
Ariel? Like, are
that's
they
the
taking
thing.
her home? Like,
That was a point in the movie where you just get so confused.
right?
On if they're is this a play or are they being themselves for real?
Mm-hmm.
That becomes very difficult. It's definitely a movie you have to watch a couple of times and you'll get layers. You called it an onion of a movie.
Yes.
And I definitely agree with that assessment.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we should probably get to a point. We close up this discussion.
Yeah, right. We don't want to make the whole Synecdoche situation where we make one podcast about life just overtaking every other podcast ever.
I think it'll be cool, and if people in the comments would like it to do more breakdowns about Synecdoche in the future, maybe specific aspects of it, because it definitely is a lot going on in
Yeah,
here.
I mean, we pretty much only touched on like the small, like the most basic aspects of every single section of the movie, but we wanted to throw our hat in the ring in terms of like just the discussion. You know, we wanted to open the discursivity of what you as the audience, having good job, by the way, having listened to us the entire time. You know, what do you think about this whole situation? You know, are we full of crap? You know, is this really a movie even worth thinking this hard about? You know,
Right.
it's actually a very interesting concept of how one spends one time. You know, it's like, just in the same way that it's important to know how one's going to die, how one spends one's time is also just as important. You know, you might think it silly that 2 grown men will spend an hour and a half talking about a 2-hour movie, you know, about a schlubby guy, you know.
Right.
But
It is that coloring of the experience,
Yeah.
especially from their background, which would be interesting to see how people will project themselves onto this film and how they'll. Because for me, coming from usually I watch movies with a lot more action going on,
Right.
or this and like this was more of like, wow, this guy is just like bringing me down, man. So
one thing I enjoy to do is finding things that I enjoy and then going to Amazon and reading like the low 1-star, 2-star reviews that people have given the thing that I like. And that's one thing that people always say about this movie is that it just moves too slow. Like there's like a general energy that the movie gives them that they're like, oh my god, like I could watch 20 minutes of this movie and it's like I have to leave.
It is something that if you aren't in it for just all the metaphors it's bringing up about life and existentialism, all that stuff, it can be if you want a movie to watch a movie to be entertained solely, Probably not.
Probably not that. Probably not this one. No. No.
It's not gonna take you on that emotional roller coaster. It's gonna be pretty downwards.
Yeah, it's
and
gonna be a downward spiral. Yes, but if we want to keep to our onion analogy, just like an onion, the closer you get to chopped onion, the closer you get to the examination, the more you want to cry, because the more
Right.
the more wafting it gets. But we find that it's worth it, and hopefully you as the audience found listening to us and just our just our thoughts on the whole concept of it, the theme, spending our time on it. I just hope that it was all worth it to you guys too.
Right. So definitely go watch the film and let us know what you think. Also, I got to give that shout out again to your
movies suck. Yes, we will be for sure hyperlinking at least part 1 onto our YouTube channel for this, because without that guy's analyses, this would be far more bare bones, I think. Like that guy, he went at it, But anyways, yeah, thank you for listening to us, and good day and good night.
All right.